Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the show. I'm here with a special guest, a viewer of mine. This is Real Nordic Hero, and he's a younger viewer, and he has some questions about his political stances and if he can improve on them because he's still formulating his political theories in his head as he's growing up. And he's from the United States, and he is 17 years old. So, welcome to the show, Nordic Hero.
I'm doing pretty good. If you wonder what I'm doing right now, I'm eating cantaloupe. So I don't want to just disturb anybody.
Very professional. If it gets too noisy, I'll just mute you. But anyway, so we talked yesterday, and we touched briefly on politics, and so I wanted to start off with, what do you see yourself as believing politically right now?
Hold up, let me finish this first. Okay, there we go.
So professional.
Look, it's a live stream. This ain't like a pre-recording.
yeah, I got you. It's fine.
So my current political views at the moment, I guess you can call them conservative. They shift depending on what's going on in like, say, the United States, depending on what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
But mainly it's just conservative.
Sort of like Republican conservative.
I really don't like to, with the whole Republican Party thing and all that. I wouldn't say I'm very pro-Republican, but I'm conservative, definitely.
Conservative. And what does conservatism mean to you? When you hear the word conservative, what do you think of?
Well, when I hear conservativism, I think it as like a like you're trying to preserve a way of life, and we're already on an ethno-nationalist type of thing, your videos and all that. So, not trying to kiss ass here, but it's trying to preserve, say, your culture, your people, and all that. No matter whose people it is, you know what I mean?
Right. So it's more of a traditionalist stance. You want to preserve the old order, sort of. And when you think of conservative in the United States, what does that mean to you? Do you think of Republicans, or do you think of like the Christian Old Guard or the old GOP? What does conservatism in the United States mean to you?
In the United States, well, are we talking pre-Trump? Oh my God, my right here, but Jesus. Are you talking pre-Trump election or post-Trump? Because that's how there's two different views I have on that.
Let's start with pre-Trump.
I view it as more, I'd say, Republican, like more related to the party than anything else.
Okay, and so most people, when they think conservative, they think Republican, and then that's pre-Trump. So is there what's the difference with the post-Trump conservatism?
With post-Trump, I'd see it as like, okay, my right earbud's messing up right now. I see it as with post-Trump, it's people are waking up more to being less, oh, we're for the party, and more, we're for our people, our culture, our way of life, and those type of things. Though there are people who say they're conservatives and just wear MAGA hats all the time, but don't know what the hell they're really talking about.
Right, just
or blindly supporting.
Yeah, blindly supporting, kind of just running with the trend. But do you know why that is? And I know the answer. So to everyone who's listening to this or watching it after it goes up, the point of this live stream is to kind of egg out what Nordic Hero really believes as far as politics as it's concerned right now. So I'm going to pose him some questions that I may already have an answer to, and I want to gauge his response so that I can respond in turn. So I'm not here to look like shit on him or make him look bad. We're here to have an actual discussion because this is an important part of people's lives, is forming their political mindset. This is going to fundamentally change who they are and where they're going in life. So, but yeah, do you know why there's been this change in the post-Trump era?
I think personally I really don't know, honestly.
Not have like a little feeling, some thoughts? It doesn't have to be
Well,
logical or anything, but just tell me what
well,
you think.
maybe it sounded logical. It may feel like um, I feel those on the right, I guess, my conservative side, were getting before pre-Trump and all that, were getting, I guess, screwed over in the media, getting bashed and all that. Then you have someone like Trump, the quote unquote hero, savior, I guess, whatever you want to call him, in that sense. And then he
Right.
comes in, tries to revitalize the beliefs and everything. I mean, now he's just like every other politician. But like during the election and all that, people had hope for him. I mean, I did.
Right. Many people had hoped that he was going to be a serious change. And I mean, we've seen some change, but honestly, I was always wary of his connections to certain individuals. But regardless of that, I think what you're looking for is he's a populist candidate, which means
Oh yeah, I knew that.
yeah, okay, so that's the answer I was looking for. So if you understand that, essentially what he does is he appeals to a certain group of people within the country, and he appealed to a large enough group that he managed to gain enough votes to get into the presidency. But this is really important when you're understanding sort of like where we're headed as a civilization, Western civilization as a whole. Populist candidates are going to get, well, popular as time goes on. As things get worse, people are going to look towards a sort of charismatic, and I know Trump isn't exactly the most charismatic person, but he's the first, what people saw as the first honest politician in decades, and that he was really down with the working man, kind of like he was not very snobbish or anything. I know he's got like gold toilets and shit, but when he interacted with people, he was very, very kind and down to earth. And then on the polar opposite of that, you have someone like Hillary. But so, what do you think Trump conservatism is really?
Um, well, well, when I think of Trump conservatism, I mean, I look at my mom. She's still to this day a pro Trump and everything and all that. And when I think of it, the first thing that comes to at least to mind for me is mainly establishment type of conservatives.
Sort of like rhinos or
I don't know. Think
Republican
of
and
another term.
sort of like people who are conservative, but they don't really uphold the principles, the so-called principles of conservatism, whatever the hell that means.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, I'll tell you this: you're in a good starting place, but if you look at the history of the quote unquote conservative movement in the United States, especially over the past 40, 50 years, or even, man, it's 60 years now, they haven't conserved jack shit. They have done absolutely nothing to conserve the old order of the United States. They have given up, they gave up an inch, and the leftists in the country took 1,000 miles from them. And so you can see nowadays we have conservatives who are against the Second Amendment or against, this sort of universal right, so called.
Oh,
And these are, they're not really conservatives. They're just really theocrats, where they're religious and they hold some religious beliefs, but they don't really hold any conservative value. In fact, they're not even very right wing in a lot of cases. So,
I have now you're talking about that about the whole conserving values. Yeah, were you in Boy Scouts at all in your life, Mimir?
yeah, whole life.
Oh my God, so I was too. You remember when they had when they were allowed gay scouts and gay leaders and all that?
Yep.
Yeah, I remember my dad. I'm gonna tell you right now, he's not he was a Boy Scout himself. Almost got to Eagle, but his whole troop just fell apart before he even got there.
Mm-hmm.
He's telling me himself when he was still around and all that well, he's not against gays at all, or I think doesn't hate them, but he thinks that this isn't in like the tenets of being a Boy Scout. This was never included in all that, and he got flack for it.
Yep. It's the sort of don't ask, don't tell kind of thing. Keep it in the back. But yeah, I mean, it's just another attack on what some people would call conservative or right wing values.
No, what was what was weird too is even within the troop, the Air Scout leaders would say the same thing, but they couldn't really fight it because you had a whole bunch of you had the whole council pretty much on their ass about it.
Yep, that as well. Many people have been sold out by the conservative politicians because this is sort of what democracy does to people. It's the lowest common denominator of leader. And the only thing that they're worried about is gaining as many votes as possible. They have no principles. They have no foundation of their beliefs. They're not willing to uphold anything if it's going to affect their political career. And this is essentially what democracy does. And so if you hold any right wing values, I mean, you kind of have to get away from the general American conservatism and go a little bit further into the right if you really want to uphold traditionalist values. So while it's not a bad starting point, I think that if you explore it a little bit further, you'll find that there are more people who are in line with your beliefs. Because the general population conservatives, I mean, they're more centrist than anything, you know.
I mean, I know my uncle. He's more traditional. If I could, I mean, I say it myself. He's more traditional. He's like the stereotypical thing that I guess I don't want to say SJWs, but SJWs hate Christian white man, everything about that.
Yep, and they just let it happen.
He's basically, I mean, he says he's non-denominational, but I have a very good feeling he's a Protestant or something like that.
Mm-hmm. And you see the behaviors of people like that where they've tried to play the moral high ground for 40, 50 years. And they've also tried to save their asses with the vote, and it's done absolutely nothing to conserve any traditional values, which is why things like the alternative right-wing movement have popped up, because they're fed up with these fake conservatives, these neoconservatives, who are essentially just centrist with slightly religious, like a twist on it. But yeah, there is a new awakening of people who actually want to uphold conservative values and actually conserve Western civilization, because people like Alex Jones, for example, he says that he is a conservative or a libertarian or whatever, but he's generally on the right. But he says things like he doesn't care if America becomes 80% brown in the next 100 years. And it's like, that's not a conservative value. That is a leftist position.
That's a little weird, because didn't, if I'm correct, possibly not, but I heard a quote, I think it was from the previous German chancellor, saying that, well, if you want to keep your country, I don't know, still having its same values, you want to have the people that are living here hundreds of years ago still living here to this day, pretty much, to summarize what he said.
No, well, any German politician outside of a few in the Alternative for Deutschland are pretty much cucked. But the point is, it's like these people they're not trying to conserve anything but their comfortable post-Golden Age lifestyles. They're not doing jack shit.
Like pre-Merkel.
Oh, pre-Merkel. Even then, yeah, the whole German spirit has just been wrecked since the post-war period. And it's, when you look at traditional values, it's not about, what's the quote? It's not about like preserving like we want to keep things the same. It's not about that. It's not about like keeping life or the status quo the exact same for an infinite amount of time. It's sort of about passing the torch and recognizing where you've come from. There's a sense of identity that every civilization needs. I got a message here in the chat. Is it at all possible to say that fascism is a leftist position, and that the newest alternative right is actually a beginning of a truly right-wing political movement? Interesting question here, because fascism in and of itself, I think, is a branch of right-wing socialism, which you would think, okay, socialism, that's leftism. Well, not entirely, because fascism relies on authority and hierarchy, and in particular, the schools of fascism that were created rely very heavily on tradition. So, and they're not egalitarian. If there's any sense of egalitarianness, like openness to outside groups or anything like that, then it would be leftist. But I don't think that fascism falls in line with that. Maybe on like a person-to-person basis, their own personal beliefs, but as far as the actual doctrines behind it, it doesn't seem that way. Yeah. Avalon Vale says the thing that makes the modern average normie, both Republicans and Democrats, so malleable is that their poor memory and attention span. They remember vague memes about history, but little else. Yeah, and it's an indoctrination center. But
That's relatively true.
yeah, people haven't been told their history, or they've been lied to about it.
Oh, I remember back in if you since we're talking about history, in history class when the Civil War came up.
Yep.
Yeah, that you had tons of Union bias. Like, I mean,
Oh, of course.
I yeah, there was tons of Union bias. We didn't even talk much about the Confederacy, other than they wanted states' rights, and even our teacher said they want states' rights to own slaves. That's what he said exactly. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, there has not been a good discussion about the Civil War, I think, ever, because what happened in the Civil War with the South is the exact same thing that happened to Germany after World War II, a soul-crushing defeat and a complete debasement of the population. They killed off their aristocracy. They basically hung them out to dry and killed their culture from the inside. So there's virtually nothing left of any real Southern history. And none of my family is from the South. I happen to live there now, but I don't have any real connection with it. And even I understand the history better than these people. But Man with So Little Power says, "Are the new Republicans liberals of years past?" In a sense, yeah, they're like religious liberals, because a lot of these like Reformed Christians hold liberal values and they want to call themselves conservative. It's more of like this big soup of centrism where the positions are sort of jumbled and you're kind of here and you're kind of there. You're a fence sitter. You don't really have any hardline positions on anything. And that seems to be the new normal, essentially, is that people, they sort of understand like maybe a couple things about politics, but they really don't have any principles to back it up on. So that's kind of what I was going to get here tonight with you, is what are your principles as far as like the world is concerned, as far as politics and maybe even religion, if you want to touch on it. But where do you principles stand? Like if
Give
you
me an example.
sure, like if someone came up to you, like if someone put you in charge tomorrow and one of your secretaries came up and said, "Hey boss, we need to sign a bill about abortion. What is the bill going to be since you're in charge?"
Well, even though I wouldn't say I'm a very religious person, I see, even though I grew up in a Christian household and all that, so I still believe God, the whole Christian thing. But with abortion, I think with I'm not gonna be. It's like it has. If you want to get an abortion, you have to have context behind it. Like, what's gonna be what are going to be the rules to say that you would not want abortion? Say
Mm-hmm.
if a woman, I mean, you can hear this over and over again. Say if a woman got raped or whatever, definitely didn't want a baby. I'm pretty sure. Um, then yes, get an abortion. If it was because of let's say premeditated sex and all that, and the person say wasn't on the pill, someone wasn't using a condom, any form of protection, then why should you get an abortion when you can't even protect yourself? How can I trust you to protect the baby?
Right. Okay, so that's kind of what I mean. And things like, what are your views on the state itself? Views on government? Do you fall under the libertarian umbrella? Are you an absolutist, like in fascism? Are you a monarchist? Are you a communist? Or where do you stand on the role of the state?
I can tell you right now, definitely not the last one. um, well, I can say this from at least an American perspective. My beliefs back then, I used to be a I mean, I guess you could say social libertarian, where it's like, oh yeah, you can do that. I won't bother with you. Don't bother with me.
Mm-hmm.
But now, I know it's kind of hard, honestly, because my my views are in between absolutist and libertarian. Because if I know, if in my head and just deep down, you just know when something's wrong, you're not going to just accept that. You're going to say no, you don't want that. You're
Yep.
being stupid.
Mm-hmm.
As that's as simple. That's as simple as I can put it, pretty much.
Right. Just real quick, Frater says, "Do you think the Republicans do a good job representing the values of the party?" Yeah, because the party has no values. They are essentially moot as far as I'm concerned. They're not conserving anything. They're very like not even right wing at all, hardly anymore. The few that are cast out of the party because they're upsetting, the Republican power. People like Paul Nellon, yeah, they want to get them out because it stains their image or whatever. It makes them, in their eyes, it makes them unreachable to certain demographics, and that's the problem. Is that they're more worried about their image rather than their principles. So it turns out that they just concede over the last 60 years, and now we get into the problems that we're in today. So the role of the state. Do you think that the state has the legitimacy to force people to do things, to pass laws, to raise taxes, to have a military? Do you think that there's no moral question in the state's authority to exist?
Well, you're talking about, well, depending on, at least for me, it depends on how the state is ran. If it's ran as an oppressive state, I don't think it should be allowed morally to pass these laws, especially if it will put down the people even more.
Now, what do you mean by oppressive? Wait, give me an example of what you think an oppressive government might do.
Someone who silences, I know you can hear this a lot, someone who silences free speech, for example.
Okay. And let's talk about free speech real quick. Do you think that there are any possible scenarios in which free speech might have to be rescinded? Or do you think that that is a universal right that applies to everyone within your society?
I know where this is going to go. I've seen your streams before. You told me that. You told another guy that even though he's an absolutist with free speech, some people's speech is clearly wrong and can subvert the whole entire culture as a whole.
Right. So that's what I'm asking is, do you think that there's ever a possibility that it's necessary for there to be intervention into what people are talking about by the state?
Well, let's say in a perfect society, right? Let's like get away from the American society, because I mean you have people looking up their news in Cosmopolitan now. I mean, but let's say the perfect society, quote unquote. I would see free speech if someone is clearly wrong and it's proven by fact and not by some blog by, I don't know, some person out in LA, then their speech should be put down, because clearly it's going to subvert people to believe in a false belief that proven by fact is wrong.
If the proven fact is wrong, what do you mean by that?
Let's say, okay, I hope to God you believe in a round earth, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, okay, good. All right, so let's say someone says the earth is flat. Well, there's a lot of proof proving that it's not. And if people start believing the earth is flat, we're going back like what, 500 years ago or something like that. And clearly it's wrong. It's going to make our culture go behind.
Right. Well, in that particular scenario, do you think that the government intervening in this type of speech might further their cause? Because like the whole premise is that the government is lying to you and all of that.
I think socially it will make more of a change, because if the government keeps on if the government keeps on putting more and more speech down, people would see it as, oh, these guys are being oppressive to us, let's keep on fighting them. But socially, and I've heard you say this before, people are social animals, and if we feel outcasted by a group, we're not going to want to keep on saying or doing the things that we do.
Yep. That's essentially my argument on some areas of speech and behavior in humans, that it's better to allow the society to control people's behaviors rather than the state in some instances. And this is one of them in particular. Yeah, the flat earth is fucking retarded. You can debunk it in a single conversation. People are just too stupid to get over it. However, as soon as the state intervenes into such ridiculous and stupid things such as the flat earth debate, one, you're creating more bureaucracy. Two, you're giving more credence to their arguments. And three, I mean, it's so pointless. Like these things can be easily debunked. So if you don't want this idea to spread, you have to cultivate it within your society beforehand. It starts in the home, starts with children, starts with education, things like that. Naturally, it will be sort of flushed out of culture once enough people are ostracized for it, and they have no other choice but to change their beliefs. You know, maybe they'll see reason if they can no longer purchase food, or they can no longer attend social events, or they're no longer welcome at work, things like that. It's sort of this freedom of association that people naturally have. I don't think that the state should be able to force people to congregate necessarily. I'm sure there's a few examples where this might not be the case, which is why I'm not in favor of universal claims like this. But regardless, back to the whole free speech thing. So you agree that there are instances in which the state needs to intervene in order to protect not only itself, but the people within it. It just kind of depends on what exactly it is, right?
Well, I believe the state should be serving the people. And I'm not gonna be someone who's like full Democrat. No, not a person who believes fully in democracy, because in my belief, democracy can only go so far before another ideology comes in to expand upon it.
This is the issue where you have to weigh the pros and cons of each system, and I think that the cons of democracy greatly outweigh the cons of a single state solution, such as a monarchy or fascism or something like that. Now, if in the transitionary period between a single state and democracy, I think if you're going to have democracy, it needs to be regulated very heavily. There needs to be restrictions on who can vote. It needs to be men of a certain age that own property and pay taxes. That's it. No one else, because they are the only ones who have a vested interest in maintaining the state as it is, so that no one else can extract resources from it necessarily.
I need to ask you a question right now.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I don't want to sound like someone who's been blue pilled, I guess, cucked. But when you said men, are you saying like men overall, or just men like in man? Like man, like
no, literally men like XY chromosome men.
Gotcha.
Yeah, because
why do you believe in something like that? I'm not getting hostile here, by the way. I'm just
no, it's fine. No, you should ask why. Because it's been proven, if we look at history, that women are incapable of maintaining society. Excuse me. There was a historical example. I think it was in the Mongol Empire, Rome, in Greece, and now we're seeing it again today in the 20th century. These matriarchies, where women are allowed to participate in politics, they crash the system because they have a natural aptitude towards the collection of resources. And if they can use the state to garner resources, they will do so as much as possible. And it's not blanket hatred of women. It's an understanding, it's a sincerity that they have a vested interest in behaving a certain way. And in order to safeguard the state, you cannot have them participating in a voting process at a bare minimum.
What you're saying right now sounds like I've seen a few MGTOW videos. I'm not gonna say I'm a completely just for MGTOW, because I'm not a member of it. I'm only like a beginner.
MGTOW is shit.
Yeah, I was looking at videos and saying all that, because what you said, they basically said the same thing. Where, what's it called? They said it was like hypergamy or something. I'm probably getting it wrong.
Hold on.
They said it's hypergamy.
Avalon Vale says voting should be limited to families. This I agree with. This is a great idea. If we're gonna have,
that's a good idea.
Yeah, if we're gonna have voting of some kind, it should be limited to families who pay taxes into the system, who are a net positive to the system.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, but they were saying something like on hypergamy, saying women are just naturally made to gain resources or something like that.
Hypergamy is a symptom of a social decline. It's when like 70% or of women chase after 10% of men. So you have this huge class of men who are seen as undesirables, even by the most undesirable women. Um, I think MGTOW in particular is a dangerous. It's a dangerous way of thinking about things because it's not family oriented. In fact, it's explicitly anti-family, which is why it's so
Oh
goddamn
yeah, yeah.
dangerous.
I've
So
seen their videos. I mean, it sounds like with MGTOW and with the whole men going their own way. I mean, they're angry and all, but if they like say a whole lot of men join the organization, that's not more like a way of life, I guess is what they call
mhm.
it. Pretty much the family, nuclear family, and all you can call it that, will be broken down, and a lot of these problems start within the family.
Yep. Same thing with incels, as a commenter points out. Yeah, incels are just dangerous. But the thing about MGTOW is that it's not actually solving the problem. If you actually look at what the problem is that men have lost control of the system, and other white knight men in the government are preventing men from having certain rights in the state. Because if MGTOW men wanted to solve the problem, they would gather up a whole bunch of men and they would go in and they would take control of the government. Because here's something that people don't seem to understand is that men naturally dominate the society because of their physical strength. So if men want to do something, they can fucking do it, and there's no one to stop them but other men. So by saying that women are the problem, you're not actually looking at the real cause of these issues. It's other men who are the problem. It's these other men who are white knighting and playing into the matriarchy, this kind of shit. That's the real problem, because the real problem lies in the fact that these men let it happen over time. They let women vote, they let women enter politics, they let them fundamentally change the way that the system worked in Western society. I believe the first case of this was in England in the 19th century. A woman essentially lobbied the state in order to grant default custody of children to women, and the men just went along with it. I don't know. I don't know why. Maybe it's social decay or social pressure or something, subversion. I don't know, but they went along with it, and it's only gotten worse over time. Let's see. Get some comments. Yeah. So Throttlegrim says MGTOW are right to be angry. I totally agree. They're not wrong per se.
I
Their
agree with that.
their solutions are terrible. You can't go your own way. If you want to make a fucking change in society, you have to be able to recognize the issue, get out there and fix it. But again, you can't do that without family, because family is the basis of every single society besides racial group. Yeah, feminism is also an attack on women. I agree. Glaucoon says, "How come men let this happen?" I don't know. Maybe it's social pressure. Maybe it's subversion. Maybe it's a shift in culture. But essentially, uh, men let their balls get gripped by women in a vice, and they just let them do whatever they want to. And now we're in the situation we're in now, where women vote extremely heavily for leftism and leftist authoritarian states, and to extract resources from men. That is the issue. Yeah.
Mimir.
What's up?
Yeah, I was just thinking about it while you were having your while you were talking to the commenter and all that.
Mm-hmm.
The whole entire conversation about women voting and all sort of stuff. In my history class, we were learning about the progressive era. If something like this ever came up in class, and say theoretically you're in my class, right, and
Mm-hmm.
you supported the right for women not to vote and all that. Well,
Yep.
it's not really right to not to vote, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Well, my God, I think you would have your ass handed to you by everyone in the class.
I
So
mean,
I think it's social pressure mainly.
I piss on social pressure. I have evidence to back up my claims. Essentially, they're as far as I'm concerned, they're brain dead zombies who have no fucking clue what they're talking about. They have no experience with history. They're very, very shit at analyzing like empirical data. Like if you look at something like the Prohibition era, a bunch of women got the right to vote, and a bunch of men went off and died in a foreign war. Horrible combination. Now women have more power than they ever had before, and what do? They start the fucking Prohibition era, which is just garbage. Things like that. The start of the social welfare state only occurred after women achieved the vote. Things like that. So there's a lot of historical examples of women shifting the entire landscape of politics to something that is the complete opposite of what society needs.
Now, with the whole, we're still okay. So, with the whole women voting thing and all that, do you think that they have a right to be angry? I guess. So, let's go back then to when the progressive movement and everything was things were like
Mm-hmm.
that. They're coming up and everything. Do you think they have the right to be mad about a lot of stuff?
No, not at all.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the whole, it's obviously horrible that there was an issue with drunkenness and the physical abuse of wives and children. Of course, they have every right to be mad about that. But in trying to solve that issue, I think they fundamentally broke the system and are tearing it down. And also, something that women stopped realizing at some point is that their entire lives are built on the backs of dead men. They would not exist if a man did not sacrifice himself. And this is the dynamic between the genders: is you have men are expendable and women are vain. That's just how things are. You have to accept that. So their entire lives depend on men doing something. They have no right to complain about this, that, or the other, because they're fundamentally incapable of doing those things on their own. They lack the ability. And this is not hatred of women. This is just recognizing their nature and loving them as they are. This is why another thing I don't like about the MGTOW or incel movement is that they just blanket hate women for really stupid reasons. And we don't on the right, we don't hate women. We venerate women. We understand their nature, and that's the social dynamic that we choose to believe in.
Mimir,
Yep.
can I ask you a question? Now, with you, and I know your whole belief is with the whole what you just told me. Can you think of a way that you could disagree with it? Because I've seen the videos. You usually come up with these decent ideas, but I've never seen you like come up with an antithesis to that idea. So can you think of something you can think of to go against what you said?
Okay, so you're looking for a counter argument to what I just said.
Yeah, that counter argument. Yeah.
Yeah. The only even half credible argument I could come up with is the sort of the universalist claim that some rights are inherent. And while you could make a philosophical claim that it's valid, it doesn't hold up to scrutiny in real life, because we see historically what happens when you allow certain behaviors to exist within society. You see a breakdown. So, for example, you could say that, okay, men and women are created equal. They have the same rights. It's whatever bullshit leftist philosophy came up with that shit. And now all of a sudden it's a universal claim, and now we're going to have to give women the right to vote because it's logical or whatever. I disregard that entirely, but it's the only argument they really have. What other real reason do women have to be involved in politics? It's the same thing as warfare. Women were not created to engage in warfare. It's not their domain. Avalon Vale says history is a series of social experiments tried under a variety of conditions, and if you have an understanding of history, you have the benefit of learning from their conclusions. Exactly. One thing that people tend to understand in their lives is that they learn from the mistakes of their parents, and that's essentially what history is. If you have a good grasp of history, if you have a good grasp of how your parents failed, then you're not going to make those same mistakes. And now that we have the internet in particular, we have access to the totality of history almost at our fingertips. It's one click away from understanding.
The only bad part about that is you don't know if the history might be false too.
Yeah, so there's you have to take it from multiple sources as well, and try and get a clear understanding. Sean Brogdon says, you have to present your argument in a way that shows that women were happy being married, raising kids. This is also key. And they've done studies on this, and it shows that women nowadays are more depressed, more suicidal, more of them are on drugs, more of them have mental health problems.
Mimir.
Mm-hmm.
I was talking to my uncle about that same traditionalist guy. He was telling me his theory on it is that the women are experiencing all this because they're taking on the burden, not whatever you want to call it, the burden of what men have to do. that women don't.
Yeah, they're essentially getting a free vote for nothing. They don't have to sign up for the draft. They don't typically work any of the hardest jobs in society. Their basic role is to have children and take care of the home and the community. That's a very brief way of explaining it, but they don't have to really sacrifice that much except their time. And so also you have to think in a democratic system, a vote is essentially violence against someone who is against that vote. You're forcing someone else to agree to that position. So
What topic do you want to go on to next? Since we're done with the whole women part, I guess.
I mean, there's a lot more I could say, but I don't want to drag on for it too long. I'm just reading the chat here.
Yeah.
Women get the vote in exchange for no sacrifice. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Like I was saying, look at women are having children later in life. They're not forming relationships. More and more women are entering their 30s with no family. They're more depressed. They're more suicidal. There are more women who enter into their 40s with no children, and there's something biologically in them that tells them, hey, you fucked up, which makes them depressed and suicidal. So it's I would say it's scientifically verifiable that women need to have children or they're going to have mental health issues. And now we would have to go into the whole discussion on how to best raise children and the social dynamic. But anyway, what else would you wanted to talk about? Another subject of debate nowadays.
I mean, since you mentioned it, what about the raising children part?
So,
do you want to start off with your beliefs or my beliefs?
Let me hear what you got so I can respond to it.
Okay, let's give me an example first of all.
Well, I'll give you the topic. What is the best way to raise children that are going to be productive members of society?
Well, I'll put it as like how I was raised, pretty much. I mean, I was raised in a 2-parent household. Mom and dad had one sibling, sister. Well, I'll admit, as a kid and even now, well, not really now much since my dad is he passed and everything. But from my own experiences, while I'll admit I'm a spoiled child. But I'm not like overly spoiled, you know what I mean? I'm not like what do you call it? It's Bugman, right? What's a Bugman?
Bugman, yeah. It's a trend. It's a type of person who, I'd have to pull up the definition. But when I think of Bugman, I think of the typical millennial male with a neck beard and a stupid haircut with glasses. He's got like a comic book T-shirt on. The only thing he cares about is pop culture and fast food, and it's disgusting.
Well, I was not raised like a Bugman. I can tell you that right now. My dad, he got screwed over. He got screwed over twice in his previous relationships. My mom came around. He got out of a rut, and he spoiled me and the rest of my family. And it wasn't like overly spoiled. He would still put me to work. He would still, like, say if I didn't do a chore, he would if I started arguing with him, when I was younger, I would get a spanking. I would get disciplined, if I got out of line and everything.
Right, a typical American conservative sort of upbringing.
Yeah, and he was more of a disciplined type of guy. He was ex-military and everything, but he wasn't extremely over-disciplined, if you know what I mean. Or to the point where it's like abusive type of discipline.
Yep.
He was more. He worked his ass off. He had 3 jobs at one time, and I remember. He even told me himself, if you really want anything in life, you got to work for it, not just keep on asking for free stuff all the time because you're not gonna get it. It's not going to be a good self-image.
Yep. So it was constructive, and you said that you were spoiled. In what way do you think that you were spoiled? And this is no fault of your own, by the way. It's only your fault if you continue to act spoiled.
Oh, I don't act spoiled. I'm just say, I wouldn't say, I mean, I really only get spoiled around certain holidays like my birthday or Christmas or something.
Yeah.
I'm not the kid that say, "Oh, I got all these on a report card, have some money." Hell no, I was not that kid.
Yep.
But I mean, say if I wanted a Xbox One like I have right now, I asked for it. Um, my mom said no. My dad's like, you know what? This boy's worked hard for it. He's a decent worker. Let him have it.
Yep. That's why
And so,
fathers are so important, because they understand sons very well.
I mean, sure, I was a pain in the ass. I mean, what teenager isn't?
Yep.
But I mean, since he's gone and everything now, it's I mean, it's different. I'll admit. Kind of crazy too.
Well, let's see. Arya Dharma asks, "Do you believe in belting children?" No, I don't. I think that there is a limit to physical abuse to children, and it's not just some abstract concept of morality. It comes from a place of understanding that there are negative effects of physical and emotional abuse of children, in that you are essentially affecting their mental state. So if you hit your children, several things happen. And I mean, hitting your children to the point of abuse, and you hit them regularly. One, they're going to develop mental and emotional problems, which means they can't make social connections as well as some people. Two, it has a chance of causing mental defects. In particular, what was the one? It's like high neuroticism, essentially, and it lowers their childhood IQ, which means if the abuse continues into adulthood or into teenage years, it will have a negative effect, and it will reduce their overall intelligence as they grow up. So there's a bunch of reasons why physically abusing your children is a very, very bad thing. And also, I mean, children are not moral agents. As a parent, you are there to protect them. Now, discipline is one thing, abuse is a totally other, and there needs to be a distinct line between the two, I think. Let's see. We got
Mimir.
Yep.
Yeah. Who was the commenter that said that? I'm eating no food right now, so.
Arya Dharma.
Yeah. Arya. Yeah, since the whole belting thing. I mean, as a kid, it stopped around like 13. Yeah, it stopped around like 13 when we stopped belting there. Or 13, 12, something around that. After that, I mean, he would just pretty much take all my stuff away. Like, say if I was acting up, take the Xbox away, do all sort of stuff, you know?
Mm-hmm.
It's like it's basically what I saw it as. There was an age where you need to stop that and then discipline them by, like, saying restricting stuff away from them.
Sean Brogdon says, "Don't know about that. Those studies may be for blacks." It was actually a multiracial study, and it was concurrent amongst almost all children of different races. And it also destroys the emotional bond between children, like Throttlegrim says. But really, if there's the way that people parent their children is much different, I think, than they used to. In that it's more of like, okay, I'm going to take your stuff away. I mean, that's not really effective. So they're either like taking their stuff away, which isn't effective, or they're just beating them black and blue. And it's like,
Mimir.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna tell you right now, with me, my dad, I'd overhear him in his room sometimes, and I mean, he was kind of surprised because there was a story where he did take my laptop away one time because I was on it all the time, want to get off. So he's like, okay,
Right,
let's take it, put it in his car, and he called, and I remember that same night I had to go take the trash out or something, so I decided, all right, sure. I took a book with me, like a heavy book about the same weight as the laptop. And I took his car keys with me. So what happened was I said, okay, I'm going to go take the trash out. Went to go take the trash out. I opened the back of his car as quietly as I could, basically placed the book in there, took the laptop out, and he didn't know. And he didn't know until like a day later after he got home from work. And I heard in his room, he called me a sneaky shit, but he's kind of proud but surprised.
Hmm.
I mean, not pretty proud, but he's seeing that. I mean, I'm smart. I'm like, at least I'm a bit smart about it.
Yeah. So let's look at that scenario in particular. You have a child that is on the computer too much, and this is a common occurrence. What some parents will do is they will berate the child, yell at them, and physically take their stuff from them. Now, this does essentially nothing but harm the child and harm the relationship between the parent and the child. So when you're faced with a scenario like this, the best possible course of action is to sit down and actually talk to your child for more than a second and explain to them exactly why their behavior is wrong. Now, as Nick the Closet King says, Machiavellian cruelty only once and only once. So yeah, you need to establish that there is a hierarchy within the family, of course. But
I mean,
if you want to change someone's behavior, you have to sit them down and talk to them like they're like almost like they're an adult, but not really. You know, kind of like
Mimir.
yeah,
I mean, I got talked to by him. I was basically he told me, if I remember what he told me correctly, he told me one day, Daniel, you're gonna steal from someone someday, and you're gonna be put in jail, and I might
exactly.
not be here for that day.
So that's what's missing is more of that. I mean, some people,
And I just stopped. I pretty much stopped stealing at this point. I don't remember. I don't remember the last time I stole something, even before he passed away.
exactly because you know the consequences and you were raised to respect authority. So that's another reason why the father figure is so important because it teaches children to recognize hierarchy and authority, and that's what keeps society moving is when people know their place and can be not dismissive or not submissive to other people, but to essentially know where they stand in society. But when you want to change a child's behavior, beating them is going to cause resentment. Emotionally abusing them is going to cause them resentment. You can't just take their stuff away because then they're not actually being taught a lesson. You need to actually show them why their behavior is wrong. Like not necessarily in an empirical way, but just sit down and tell them what you think they're doing is wrong and why. Yeah, and James Edwards says parents are under a lot more stress nowadays, so they are less focused on raising the child. So our Jewish-owned institutions are raising our children. This is essentially correct. You have two, because of the way that women have been introduced into the workplace, you have no parents in the home anymore. Instead, you have them in daycare. And when you do that, you are severing a key emotional bond between parents and child, where some parents don't even spend more than an hour or two with their children a day, which is horrible. It's absolutely destructive to the child's psyche. And
Oh, Mimir.
yeah,
I'm gonna tell you something. I've had a few friends in the past who's told me that same thing you're telling me. They don't really spend much time with their parents. Ask them why, and then they usually say parents are tired, parents can't do this. I'm like, and personally, I've experienced that earlier years, not later years, because at one point my dad had to work like 3 jobs, as I mentioned before, and he'd get home real late at night, like 11 o'clock or something, hardly get any sleep, and that may have been the cause of also him possibly becoming sick and dying too, because he just worked his ass off all the damn time.
there's too much stress. Wages have been lowered. Bursary is at an all-time high. The financial system is a disaster. It's so destructive, and it has like an echo effect on the raising of children. And I mean, I understand that the parent is stressed out, but for them to just explode on their children and try and unload their problems on the children, that's not what your job is as a parent. That's emotionally damaging them to the point where you're going to have a bunch of incels and MGTOWs that grow up later on in life, which destabilize society. How can the problem of women's influence in society be solved? Pretty easily. And so here's what the Soviets did in the United States. Essentially, they sowed the seeds of feminism through cultural Marxism in the Frankfurt School. And the goal was to divide men and women among gender roles. And so you have a group of men who now hate women, and you have a group of women who now hate men. And this, of course, increases homosexual tendencies along with a matter of other things. But when you have the two genders fighting each other, you create broken homes, which creates broken children. And so now the next generation of children are fundamentally flawed and broken from the get-go, which means they can't be productive, which means their society collapses. So if you're a man and you have any hatred towards women, well, you're a huge faggot, first of all, because you fundamentally don't understand anything about the gender dynamic of humans. For any women who hate men, you're a screeching banshee, and you're only destroying society. Everything that you hold dear relies on men working to house, clothe, and feed you, and there's no way that you can replace that. And also, you're probably going to end up killing yourself by the time you're 40 because you're childless and alone. So there needs to be a mutual understanding between the two genders that this is my role, that is your role. This is what we're going to do, and we're going to come together and we're going to create a family in order to stabilize society. It is a mutual relationship between the two. Think of it like this. If you're standing out in the rain, and you want to not be rained on, well, you have to you got to have an umbrella. And that's essentially what marriage was. It was a way of keeping people out of the rain, because when you have two people come together in sort of this what's the term, where they stay together for a long time, the word escapes me, monogamous relationship, for the pursuit of raising children, you have an extremely stable society. That's how we got to where we got today in the Western world, is because we recognize the sanctity of the union between man and woman for the purpose of procreation. It's extremely part of the social dynamic. It's fundamental to maintaining a society over, more than like 2 or 3 generations. Let's see. Let's look at the chat. Oh, okay. So the question was, how can the problem of women's influence in society be solved? First, we need to solve the problems between the two. We need to reinstate the idea that there is a mutual understanding between the two, that we are fundamentally different, and that we respect each other when it comes to coupling and relationships. Like, you can't just blanket blame men for all these problems, or blanket blame women for their nature. It's not going to work. Yeah. So, and then Throttlegrim says men need to become stronger, and women will follow. And that goes back to my point about MGTOW, is that men rule the society because they're physically stronger, and there's nothing women can do about it. So if men want to have a society that is a certain way, just go out and fucking do it. There's no one to stop you but other weak ass men. Women will fall in line because they're created by nature to want to follow a leader. It's in their best interest to do so. Chat doesn't allow you to see more than one line. Yeah, better partner selection by both men and women is essential. A high number of sexual partners for women should be a red flag that she isn't wife material. Exactly. She's essentially destroyed her emotional bond with her partners. Nick says he's going to go to bed. See you later, man. Thanks for coming by. Yeah, bring back slut shaming. Absolutely. There needs to be more shame in society, as far as I'm concerned. I'm convinced that more shame all around. More shame by parents. More shame by... Shaming. Yeah, exactly. Fat shaming, slut shaming.
Oh my god! I'm going to tell you about the whole thing right now.
Go for it.
Fat shame. I'm an overweight guy. I'm not like massively. I'm not obese. All right, I'm not gonna say that. That's disgusting. I don't know how the hell people can get to that point. But
exactly.
I'm an overweight because back then I just ate a ton of stuff. Didn't even care. Probably got seconds there, you know what I mean? Sometimes even thirds, but whatever. And if someone says to me, "Hey Daniel, you're looking a little heavy. You need to work out." My mom even told me that, and I'm like, "Yeah, you're right." And that's why I'm at the gym right now.
How embarrassing!
Yeah, man, terrible.
Exactly. Terrible. It's this sort of limp-wristed shame, like, "Oh, hey man, you're looking a bit thick." Now you need to go up and say, "Hey, you fat fuck, go to the gym, put down the cheeseburger." That's what you need to say. You need to be harsh about it, because these are very serious things. You're not going to have a functioning society if people are deviants or decadent.
My mom even told me that, like, Daniel, if you don't start losing weight and all that, you're going to have all these health problems in the future. And you know what happened to your dad. You don't want to become him, and I don't want to see you become that either.
Right. Yeah, we need to stop rewarding.
When I say that, I don't mean weakness. Like derogatory. That I mean like he had diabetes and everything, type 2.
Mm-hmm. Glockhoon says, Andrew Anglin made a fair point that most men, given the current climate, must expect their future wife to be somewhat ruined due to promiscuity, and that waiting for the pure Christian wife is unrealistic. I sort of agree in the fact that you should first, like, you're not going to find a woman like all these men who say that, oh, women are all corrupt and I'm just going to end up divorced and broke. It's like, no, if you are actually invested in classical masculinity, if you're actually strong and fit and well focused on yourself, you're going to attract good quality women. And even if you don't, fundamentally, in my experience, women listen to strong men and change their opinions based on him. So even if you take a woman who is a little bit, what's the word he used? A little bit ruined, maybe, a leftist or something like that, maybe had a couple or like a dozen sexual partners or something like that. You can change her mind if you're a strong man. You can convince her that your traditional values are the way forward, and she's going to follow you and listen to you and things like that. So it comes from the self first. It comes from being strong first. And all these men who complain about, oh, I didn't see it coming. I didn't think my wife was going to divorce me. Ask yourself the question, what did I do wrong first? And Thrallgrim says society as a whole needs to stop rewarding weakness. Absolutely. We've been sort of promoting the very worst of our society. If you look at leftists nowadays, they're pro mental illness, they're pro disabled people, they're pro shitty culture. It's all glorifying weakness. And fundamentally, like, if they were going to base their entire society on that, it would collapse immediately, because everyone's a weak, degenerate, mentally ill retard. Let's see. Mimir, what are your views on men that generally get jealous and are insecure? I think they're faggots. They're not holding frame. There's something fundamentally wrong with them. But if you want to break out of that cycle, you take my advice. You need to eat right. You need to maintain your body, and you need to be smart. So you need to start reading. You need to do something with your life. You need to be productive. You need to contribute something to society. You need to have a job or work with your hands or something, have a skill that's worth money. You need to earn an income. That's fundamentally your job as a man. So if you get super jealous and insecure, there's something wrong with you. You fundamentally see yourself as weak, and you need to change it. And there are things you can do to help out with that. All right. Anything else you want to talk about, Nordic Hero, while we're here? Any questions you might have about politics or philosophy or religion or anything?
Let's get back to politics again and all that. I'm gonna ask you a question. What's your whole what made you go to ethno-nationalism?
A good understanding of history, some knowledge of science, a decent understanding of politics. I mean, it's a long kind of pipeline from one belief to the other. And as soon as you get on the right, in some sense, as soon as you start believing in some right-wing values, the logical conclusion is some type of ethnic nationalism of some kind. You just cannot avoid it. It's so, like, fundamental to some of the ideas in politics, the idea of the nation state, the foundation of the nation state, and what the government as a whole is meant to do. Arya Dharma says, if you're going to compare modern women to traditional women, you have to use that same scrutiny on yourself and compare yourself to traditional men. This is exactly my point. If you don't have yourself settled, then you're not going to find a high quality woman. And then when she divorces you and takes half your income, that's your own goddamn fault. So essentially, how's it going, Francisco? Essentially, there's a pipeline. You start off one way, you see the social ills, you're already kind of right wing, then it increases exponentially from there, and eventually you get to the point where you start to read more esoteric writings, or at least esoteric by today's standards, and you form a political theory that some people would call extreme. And it's not extreme. It's a completely valid solution to some of the problems. Yeah, Disciple Bugs Bunny says Ari is correct. You have to be Mr. Right before you can find Mrs. Right. Exactly. That's why I talk in particular to people like you, Nordic Hero, young people who need to get their shit together because the clock is ticking. Something else you wanted to say?
Well, oh my god! Well, I was spacing out there for a second. Yeah, you said I heard you saying just get my shit together. That's
Yep.
And after that I just started spacing. I mean, before I started spacing out, and then I heard I was like something just went off of my brain.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, right now I'm trying to get my shit together. I'm trying to eat right at the moment, though sometimes I may overeat and all that. But yeah, but mainly I'm trying to eat right. I'm trying to get my physique back in shape.
Mm-hmm.
Um, um, right now, at least for a job, my mom, she's in the higher up positions at a hospital, Centera. So that's all I'm gonna say on here. Man,
Right.
she's basically got me a summer job with a biomed internship.
That's pretty cool.
And I mean, right now, what I do, it's like a side job. Every Saturday we go. She has clients she knew for her volunteers. So she has clients who we basically clean their houses for. I get paid like $25 to $30 um, each time I go, pretty much.
Right.
And hell, if my sister's not going, I may even get paid 40 that day.
But it's essentially building work ethic, right?
Yeah, and like she's even said that herself. I mean, hell, over a span of 5 months, I have around 400 something $500 at the moment.
Mm-hmm. And that needs to be invested in you.
Oh yeah,
and
I'm not going to spend it.
Yeah, not necessarily in material things, but things that are going to improve either your knowledge or your understanding or help you in life in some way.
I mean, my own he was like the investor of the family mainly. I mean, I already told you he's Jewish and also
Yeah.
the stereotype and everything.
Yeah, exactly. So keep your shekels essentially.
Yeah.
Sean Brogdon says, any tips for someone who lives in a pause metro area? Yeah, like it's hard to even find friends who aren't soy boys I get along with. Bogs at work, it's shameful. LOL.
What's a pause metro area? I'm on now.
Pause, HIV positive. It's a slang term.
Oh,
POZ.
Okay. Now I already knew what pause was, like HIV positive. I've seen a video from Midcore at one time.
Exactly. So pause metro area.
Yeah. I know what you're talking about now.
It's hard to say. I mean, obviously you need to have a social net, but if you're looking for people who aren't cucked, you have to go and engage in social activities that aren't cucked. For example, join a gun club. Join an activity that is, masculine of some kind, martial arts. Find a bar that isn't, like a metrosexual bar. Go in there and find some men to talk to. Yeah, learn a trade, because typically you're not going to find many soy boys working in a trade job because that requires actual effort and skill. So there's a lot of things you can do, and I'm not gonna be like Stefan Molyneux and say you need to explicitly cut everyone out of your life that doesn't follow your political beliefs, because I think that's dangerous. That leads to cult mentality. It's also not good.
I think that leads to isolation.
Yeah, and isolationism leads to extremism, which is not productive in a lot of ways. So, I mean, there's a balance you have to strike. Like if someone is like, let's say you're a white person, Sean, and someone is disparaging your race on a constant basis. Yeah, don't be friends with that person. But if you're just like hanging out with someone, you just like going to a bar, you're getting something to eat, or you're just kind of shooting the shit. Yeah, just maintain those friends. And those are the people who you should be trying to maybe red pill, ease them into it. Maybe not explicitly talk about politics, but just kind of talk about how you view society and how the world is going, and maybe slip in some esoteric knowledge in there every now and again. Maintain these social groups.
Hey, Mimir.
Mm-hmm.
talking about, I guess, quote unquote, red pilling people.
Yep.
One of my friends today at school, I was telling him how I was going to be on a live stream today. He was like, "Oh, what for?" I told him something with politics, and I remember him telling me we went to the mall on my birthday. One time we just needed to get out of the house. After we ate and everything. Went to the mall and all that. We went to this one shop, and in the back, Jesus Christ, there was a lot of BDSM, gay shit, just a ton of weird, just a ton of stuff. And
What the fuck?
my friend just was like, you know what Spencer's is? You know what Spencer's is, right?
Oh yeah, I'm familiar. Yeah.
Yeah, he went into that store. I mean, he told me the only redeeming factor about that place was the Bob Ross shirts.
Yeah, exactly. It's
And
just degeneracy.
he went
in
in
the
there, and he was telling me, he was like, hey, this he just told me it's gay propaganda, and he's bisexual himself.
Yeah, exactly.
And well, not just it was kind of like just not right. It doesn't sit well with you. It's something you laugh at. I mean, I looked down, I was like, what the fuck? Because I mean, that was my second time in there, pretty much, and It's just even it's stuff you just don't get. It just makes you look, just doesn't look right, you know.
Yeah, I mean,
And I was telling him,
Go ahead.
I was telling him you should watch this guy named Mimir and all that. So I don't know if he might be watching your stream, might not be right now.
Well, howdy, Nordic Heroes friend. Welcome to the show. If you're watching this post show on the YouTube page, there's a whole series of videos. One of them, I have a playlist called Almond Activators. That's videos that really make you think, stuff that's really going to question your beliefs. And there's a couple of videos that I've made on ethnic nationalism, on politics, a couple of things about spirituality, and some other live streams that I've done. So go and check those out. You'd be surprised.
I know of him. He's a big history type of guy. He's German, all right, and mainly, let's just say, yeah, he's German. And when I say history, I mean he likes the whole German Empire, Kaiser Wilhelm type of thing. He's into that a lot.
Well, there we go.
Yeah, and he was talking to me today about his whole political views and all that. His political views, he more aligns with, let's say, the German Empire and all that. Kaiser, like, was it the third during World War One, right? Kaiser Wilhelm the Third.
I think
World War One German Empire.
I think so. I can't say for certain off the top of my head. But
Prussia, Germany, that type of thing.
Yeah, it's like Frederick the Great and things like that.
Yeah, yeah.
Awesome.
He's into all that. So I think he might like your stuff.
Yeah, I mean, definitely like show him the stream that we've talked about today. You know, just put some headphones on and listen to it. Ari Dharma says, join a gym that does MMA or something similar like boxing, Muay Thai, BJJ. The guys at my gym aren't red pill, but they're definitely not emasculated wimps. This is exactly right. One of the best sports that all fathers should train their sons in is traditional European martial arts. Like not this like new age wrestling shit, but like Greco-Roman wrestling and it's what's the like Krav Maga, something like that. And boxing. Boxing is an incredible way not only to work out, but to relieve stress and sort of build character. Because if you can hit and get hit and actually enjoy it, then you're going to be way more successful at life. And it teaches you to not be afraid and how to fight back and stand up for yourself. So some key advice for all future fathers out there. Definitely teach your children a martial art of some kind, whether it's like historical European martial arts, like sword fighting or something like that, which is a lot of fun, by the way, or it's MMA, like boxing or Muay Thai or something like that. I would stay away from like the standard issue, like karate kind of shit, because it's more of a meme than anything. But you know, as long as it's a physical activity, it's great.
I mean, I remember with my physical activity, I know my dad, he got me into when I was younger, not now, when I was like far younger. I used to be on a baseball team. I used to take Taekwondo.
Exactly.
And those were before Boy Scouts. After that, I joined the Cub Scouts, went on to Boy Scouts. The troop kind of fell apart, so I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna book it at this
Hmm.
point because the troop's falling apart, and I would have migrated to another troop where the troop was so big, I would just feel like a number, not really like a
It,
person in that troop.
if I could talk a little bit more about the ideal childhood for raising the son, and this takes off of my real life examples and things that I did when I was younger. Uh, One, physical activity should be like the highest regard because men need to be physically strong. Otherwise, I don't really consider them men. They're just, you know, uh, women with balls. So you have to be physically strong. So you need to engage them in physical sports of some kind. Baseball is great. I did baseball for a long time. And not only does it teach you physical strength, but it teaches you endurance. It's a team building exercise. It teaches you about social hierarchy, all of these really fantastic things, and it's fun as hell. So, I mean, that's just something
Oh
great.
no, no, my baseball experience was fun. It was, I mean, my baseball experience. Yeah, do you mind if I go off topic here for a second?
Hmm.
All right, so yeah, I remember the coach's son. Dear God, he was when he would get striked out, dear Lord, he would chuck that baseball bat across the field and just start, or he would just start beating the cage with it, just act like a complete just baboon
Yep.
if he didn't like get what he wanted.
Yep.
And then me, when I played baseball, I mean, I was shit at batting. I'm gonna admit it, but catching, I was just spot on.
Yeah, and it's really important. Glakun Khan says, uh, at Mimir said, you're one of the highest quality alt right YouTubers comparable to JF. The quality of your thought and formulations are high. Thanks very much, man, for the praise. I really appreciate it. The whole
I never
reason
watched JF.
you never what?
I've never watched JF. What's he all about?
If you're interested in ethnic nationalism from the libertarian perspective and someone who's really good and well knowledgeable in biology, go check him out. That's why I watch him.
Yeah. I
But
mean, I've watched him on the Worski streams, Race Worski.
check out his own channel streams. Those are I think that's where he really shines sometimes, unless it's explicitly a debate he's involved in, is on his own personal channels. But anyway, so back to like raising a son, the ideal childhood experience of a man. One, they need to interact with other men so they can understand social hierarchies. They need to be physically active. They need to learn skills, and they need to be engaged in some form of education that's really important because you don't just want a meathead. You want someone who can engage in conversations like we're having now, which is fairly highbrow considering the culture that we live in. So the
I
things
mean, if
that
anyone found out. When you say hi, I mean, I was gonna say if anyone found out, I'm anonymous right now, but if anyone found out about what I'm doing right now at school, I'm gonna tell you right now, I'll be fucked over.
I mean, even if something like that happens, just own up to it. Don't be afraid.
Yeah.
There's
Oh,
no
I'm good. I mean, I can't hide at that point, so I mean,
just
might as well.
just don't go walking around school waving, you know, uh, a battle flag from the Third Reich because you're probably not going to go over too well. But don't be afraid to speak on your principles. But anyway, okay. So sports activities, especially team sports like baseball, very important. Also, baseball, lots of white people. Just saying, lots of white people in baseball. Not too many uh, non-whites until you get into the South. But anyway, physical activity, Boy Scouts. If you're in the United States, or I think it's in most of the Western world, but some type of physical bonding activity between father and son that involves other fathers and sons is just it's the best experience you can have for a young child. It removes
I
any
mean,
doubt in their head. Yeah.
My
uh,
own dad, he was one of the scoutmasters too. So
yeah, exactly. I mean, that's so good for the bonding of a father and son. Francisco says, "My downfall was TV when I was a kid. Me personally would have kept my kids away from TV. Yeah, don't expose your children to any media. Sorry, not alternative media. Any media. Don't expose them to any popular culture outside of what you know is acceptable, because you don't want them to catch the bug, essentially. Uh, and also, I mean, you know, don't don't sit down in front of a TV all day. Like if that's the entirety of your culture, it's shit and needs to be thrown out. Like just sit down there and talk with your son, or read a book with him, or something. Go outside and build something, even if it's just like I don't know, like a wooden sword or a bookshelf or something. Go out there and build something with them, something that you and the child can be proud of, that you worked on together, something that he can look back on and say, uh, my family really cares about me because we had so many interactions with one another. Ari Dharma says, what do you think about homeschooling? Homeschooling can be great, but it requires a certain level of intelligence in the parents, I think. Because it's sort of like, I haven't really fully thought this out. Homeschooling is great, and it should definitely be an option for parents, but some parents just don't know how to teach. You know what I mean? Like they just don't know how to get through to somebody, or take an idea, analyze it, break it down, and re-explain it to someone who is younger than them. It's very hard to do that. And I think that in an ideal society, of course, there should be homeschooling guides that kind of coincide with the society, the values of society. So that's really important. Yeah, and Avalon says we're going to have to homeschool, honestly, or small group homeschooling, community schooling. Yeah, community schooling was one of the most beneficial things to the Western world early on, where this is a real important part that women play in the community, is that they are able to teach children. The men are off doing whatever, and the women are at home with all the children. Well, yeah, all the women congregate together and they teach their children, in a little schoolhouse out in the field somewhere. So community schooling, yeah, it's a good idea. And men need to learn a trade. Yeah, young men need to learn how to work with their hands, because men are tool-oriented creatures. That's just in their nature. So they need to learn how to express that in a positive way. And like this whole Common Core shit is just fucking, it's brain cancer as far as I'm concerned. So there needs to be a bit more of critical thinking, not just preparing kids for tests, not just getting them to memorize things, getting them to actually formulate a goddamn thought in their head. Get something you want to say?
Yeah. Hey, sorry about the whole, and sorry for like the viewers and all that I'm cutting you off every so often.
No, I mean this is about you and me. This is for.
Yeah, it's just that like when I feel like I have something really important to say, at least with me, I usually tend to cut people off. I know it gets on people's nerves.
No, do it.
I'm sorry about that. Yeah. Yeah. You want to go into education next, since you're already on topic about Common Core and all that?
Sure. Yeah. Go ahead. Anything you want to touch on in particular?
I mean, God, I keep on asking this. Give me like a situation, since I'm in school right now. Like, ask me what it's like, I guess.
Well, obviously, the sciences. Well, maybe not. What are the sciences like? What are they teaching you in science classes? Like, do you do chemistry, physics, A&P, or anything like that?
I was going to take astronomy this year, but my math wasn't all that good, so they moved me back to oceanography.
Do they actually teach you anything practical, like how elements bond and shit?
In chemistry, I'm sure, but a lot of the kids, they just forget about it later on. I'll be honest. We're mainly doing it for the SOL.
Exactly.
Even the teachers hate it.
Exactly.
The teachers
you're just studying for a test.
Yeah.
It's all like pre-planned out. Like you can't really change how you're teaching kids if you have to follow guidelines. Like you can't put any actual value into the teaching of children.
I mean, the classes I have now that are pretty practical, and the classes I've had back then. I took German up to third year. My ass didn't pay attention, so I pretty much dropped off after. I mean, I took German in middle school up to like German 2, but then high school came around, German 3. I said, "Oh, it's time to slack off." Turns out it's not time to slack off. I took it in sophomore year. So, yeah, German for me, at least, German is a say if you're gonna go traveling around the world or something, or just talking to people in general, I'd say that's a good language to learn and all that, especially with Europe and all that. Another class I have, there's 2 classes this year I'm taking. Psychology would be one of them. Now, I know we have your own opinion about psychology, I'm pretty sure. and some teachings in it. But at some points, you can put into you can use in daily life, I suppose.
Right.
And the other one would be engineering, of course, with building stuff and all that.
Yeah. I if anyone hasn't seen, I did a video on what it was like to be a white minority in the education system, in the public education system, and essentially I couldn't get anything done unless I was in an advanced placement course. So in middle school, I took 2 years of French, and I don't want to say I was fluent for my age, but I was understanding like the concepts of language, even though, most kids, if you aren't raised with it from a very young age, it's kind of hard to get into like another language, like kind of hard to grasp like grammar and things like that unless they explicitly teach it to you. But when I went to high school, I was in a high school that was, well, it was, you were either black or Hispanic. There were like 5 white people on there. So we all knew each other, of course. But I decided to take French because I had to take a language elective, and I didn't really want to learn Spanish because I was real boring. But so I took another 2 years of that, and I essentially lost everything because no one in the class wanted to pay attention or gave half a shit about language. They made the teacher cry on a like regular basis because she just couldn't get anything done. They would just slack off the entire time. And so essentially I had the possibility of being fluent in another language. I was just fucking around, and the people around me were toxic to the learning environment. So it's so horrible what the modern education system is doing to some people.
Mimir.
Yep.
I've had like the same situation. I mean, I took French too, so I guess I can use that as an example. But I think, yeah, with my issue, it's just that with German, I was struggling, not because people were just dumb as shit, I guess you can say, but it's because of my own fault. I wasn't really studying at all, something like that. And I mean, as you said, unless you learned it from a young age, it's pretty hard. And it kind of was counterproductive because I mean, my dad, he took French until AP, and me, I took German. He knew nothing of German. Now I think about it, I probably should have taken French. But yeah, also talking about French, I had the same situation with French class too, where yeah, people would just slack off. But I don't know about you, but in the end, for me, I just accepted it, I guess, and I started to slack off too.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't really have the best work ethic until a couple of years later, so I'm really upset with myself that I didn't take advantage of that opportunity. But you know, if anyone's looking for languages to learn, if you're looking for European languages, Russian is a really interesting language. German is really good. Scandinavian is really good. French is interesting. If it's a fairly easy romance language to learn. Same with Spanish. Portuguese is not very interesting. What else is there? I learned a little bit about Old Norse just because it was like, kind of cool, like interesting. I never learned anything about it, and you can really see like the history. The history of languages actually is an interesting subject because I don't know. Looking at the history of our languages, it really shows you where they come from. It gives you a different perspective on how we communicate with one another. But anyway, Avalon says, I took a Latin. I wish I had had that choice because I don't think there would have been that many people who would have taken it. Maybe I would have learned something.
Yeah, that's the reason I didn't take. I mean, we had Latin in our school too, but I didn't take it because I mean, I didn't think many people were taking it either.
Yeah, it's not very popular.
And I've heard it's a dead language too, unless you're. Yeah, I've heard it's pretty much a dead language at this point.
I don't know if it's key to learning the other Romance languages. I don't think it is because if you already know English, they're pretty similar. Like some of the concepts, like the gendered words, is kind of obscure for children to learn. But most of like the words you can kind of eke out. You know, it's not like you're teaching a kid to learn like Russian, where you have to learn like a whole new set of alphabetical letters and some vowel, like it's like some sounds that you don't even make in English. It's very confusing.
Yeah, Um, I mean, it was easy for me, at least for German, because I mean, when you look at the language, let's say separate from the whole like the differences between the way you pronounce things with the gender and all that. Because I remember in German we learned something with der, die, and das, and yeah, it's more confusing, I guess,
Mm-hmm.
for the gender part. I repeated myself. But it's pretty easy language if I mean if you know English and you're fluent with English,
Mm-hmm.
because French and German sound some words in it sound exactly the same as they would sound in English.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, because they come from the same place. Whoa, 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 whoa. What are you doing? Sorry, I got to mute you. I don't know what you're doing with your mic. But yeah, the if you look at the history of languages, they're so interconnected. I mean, it makes sense to learn start with a similar language that's useful and kind of go from there. Japanese is interesting, but I don't really have any desire to use it. You know, like I'm not really interested in going to Japan or anything. So yeah, Redacted says take Latin if you're going into biology courses, makes your life 1,000 times easier. I agree. Yeah, definitely something to consider. Okay, you're unmuted now. Any
Yeah,
other
I was trying to tell you that a jet was going over my house. I was right next to
Oh
a baby bed.
Jesus. Well, yeah, that'll do it. Any other questions or anything concerns? Something you want to say before we close out here?
Um, you want anything to say about let's talk about you actually. Might as well before we close out. How was post high school, college, and all that? What did you do? I know you learned to trade and all that. And what do you think would be a better option? Would you rather go to a college or learn a trade?
Oh no, I went to college. I didn't actually go into trade.
Oh, okay. Okay.
I went to college for 2 years, but I was so taken by nihilism that I really didn't do anything with it. I was very uninterested in life at the time, and that's how I've come to understand the nihilist perspective so well, because I was there once. You know, I mean, we've all done stupid things in our lives, and that particular college years was like just particularly shitty for me, but it taught me a lot, and I'm stronger because of it. But college was not for me. I don't think I really had the work ethic at the time to do it. Like if I could go back today, I probably would, but I mean, it's honestly better for me to just stay where I am in my career. So it was interesting. I mean, I learned a couple of things here and there. I made a lot of good like social connections, and I had a lot of fun, but it was kind of a waste. And I had a full ride to university, but like I said, I wasn't interested, so I kind of dropped it, and that was about it. Most people are better off going into a trade rather than college. It's
Yeah.
very overvalued as something you have to do.
All right. Yeah, because I was asking because I'm going. Have you already told you on Discord that I just came back from this whole college thing, all that.
Right.
Yeah, and I was trying to search for schools for culinary because I like the culinary arts and all that cooking and stuff.
Right.
So, um, do you think do you think going to college? Because I have a free ride pretty much to college at this point. But do you think I should go to college for that, or go to college say for something like business or whatever? Because I'm thinking about maybe opening up a business and all that.
I mean,
Restaurant.
I have a friend who's in hotel and restaurant management, and he did it, and he wasted like 5 years of his life because he was kind of in and out of it. He started off as a software engineer and then realized he didn't want to do that, so he went into hotel restaurant management, and he hasn't really done anything with it because it's not really. I don't know. It's as far as I'm concerned, that degree field is a meme, and people just use it just because they don't want to waste their time in college too much. So, I mean,
The business thing.
business, it kind of depends. I think that it's not as useful as an actual trade because it's just focused on generating income and maintaining income. It's kind of hard because I think if you're better off in college, you're going into something like the sciences, like STEM, rather than the
Yeah.
arts, because it's much more useful. And if you don't want to do that, then go into a trade. Yeah, and I think in the future there's going to be a change in the capitalist business model. I think we have too many people who are interested in owning businesses and not enough people who are concerned with actually being productive. Like this parasitical capitalist class of people who want to sit at home and work online, just like buying, selling, and trading like Chinese plastic crap. They're
I've
gonna
never
have
understood that.
they're gonna have a rude awakening. It's a way to make a living, but it's garbage and it's toxic. They're parasites as far as I'm concerned. They're flooding the world with trash and garbage that we don't need with money that we don't have. So
Hmm.
yeah, and I think that the business models are going to change. So you're better off learning a skill that's actually practically useful, you know? Because if you learn all there is to know about business and in 10 years society collapses and there's no more businesses, what the fuck was the point? But if you go into trade and you become like a welder or something, well, yeah, as long as there's metal in the ground, we're going to need welders. So it's a practical application.
So you're saying more on hands type of stuff would work?
Yep. And things like working in a kitchen, it's oh my god, it's such a toxic work environment. I have so many friends who are working in kitchens and they just like they're constantly like taking drugs, I guess. I mean, just to cope with how chaotic working in a kitchen is. It's completely not something I want to do. You know, it's a job and, you know, the service industry, someone's got to do it, but that's better left to younger generations, not 60-year-old men. So it's not necessarily a skill you want to invest very heavily in. Well, any final thoughts?
Um, I'm just gonna say that not trying to kiss ass or anything, right? But I think that after this whole live stream and everything, you're I think you're good to talk to for say something like what for something like ethno nationalism or whatever. Like what I've seen, what you've told me is like it's literally like self help, I guess, from what I've heard.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what people need more than anything else nowadays.
Yep. You're not going to have an army of Aryan Ubermensch if they're too busy jerking it in their man caves. So it starts from there. You're not going to have, you know, the next political revolution if you're sitting on your ass hating yourself. So just real quick, Redacted says, I wouldn't recommend welding. Go for plumbing or HVAC, saying that as a welder switching trades. It kind of depends on where you take it, because there's a lot of like local welding businesses. But if you go into like aerospace welding or a highly specialized field of welding, like a certain type of chemical welding, it's extremely in demand right now, like specialists in the field. And it kind of depends on where you're at. Some places there's a lack of certain trades. Some places there's too many people in a trade. You know, you kind of have to judge it depending on where you live. Yeah, welding, carpentry, woodworking, honorable trades. I definitely agree with that. Anything else?
Yeah, that's about it.
Cool. Well, I don't know when the next show will be, everyone, but thanks for coming out. I mean, this is kind of an impromptu stream. We just started talking yesterday, but probably next week of some kind. So if you have any questions, throw them in the chat real quick before we sign off. We've been at this for a while now, so over an hour.
Hey, Mimir.
Yep.
I'm just gonna do you for my political beliefs. I'm not trying to like use you as like a foundation for my beliefs or anything, right? So, but with my beliefs right now, I've already told you, at least. Do you think how do you think they can be improved upon?
By reading, just reading more literature. I mean, you can listen to people all day long, but you're not fundamentally understanding their worldview unless you're reading their source material.
What material? Like what books? I already know you told me books like Imperium and stuff like that, but
well, I mean, I have a reading list for politics that starts from Yeah, it starts from the very basics and all the way up to more esoteric knowledge. Yo-Yo says, need better guests. Well, not just this guy. sorry to put you on the spot there, but no, I mean, this is an important jumping platform because it's important to talk to the youngest people in generation, like in our like the next generation. They're going to be in power eventually, and you need to talk to them and understand with them now and kind of network with them.
Hey, who was the guy who was the commenter?
Someone by the name of Yo-Yo.
Yeah, Yo-Yo. Yeah, I'm sorry, man. It's just that like, this is all new to me. So if I sound dumb or something, then yeah, I mean, I'll take fault for it.
And the point is to change people's ideas, and it's a good launching platform for talking about. I mean, all the things that we talked about tonight were only possible. Like I had all the ideas in my head, but I needed a reason to talk about them. And someone who's seeking knowledge like you are, it's a good place to start. You know, like I could talk about this stuff all day, but it's not really relevant if I don't have a point, like a reason for talking about it necessarily. So he's just an internet troll. He says he feels bad now.
Oh no, that's fine. It's fine, man. Look, I'm new, so.
Oh, and I mean, he has a. Go ahead.
I mean, he has a.
I think we lost him. But anyway, who is your GlockoonCon asks, who is your favorite philosopher? Good question. I don't really know. I don't think I've read. I don't think I've read enough philosophy to really say who is my favorite. You know, I don't really subscribe to any one like philosophical realm. Like I'm not an empiricist. I'm not a positivist. I'm not a I don't know. I don't even know what the other. I can't even think of the other schools right now. But I don't really have a favorite one. I just kind of read whatever I think is necessary and take the good of what they say and kind of run with it. Yeah, Pythagoras is pretty based. Anyway, I think we're going to close it out there. Oh, one more thing I wanted to say. The March book club is ending soon, so we'll be talking about the Leviathan here in a couple of days. I believe it's on Sunday. And then if anyone has any constructive criticism as to what the next book for April should be, leave a comment on the book club video that I did and let me know what you think the next one should be. I have an idea, but yeah.
How many people are still watching at the moment?
16.
Okay, cool. All right, so these 16 people right now. How long has this live stream been going on right now?
About an hour and 20 minutes ish. I think I honestly don't remember.
Okay. Well, yeah, I want to ask you. Can I ask you guys a favor in the chat? For the whole live stream, what do you guys think I should improve upon to make myself sound at least, I guess, better?
Good question. I think that my advice is pretty sound. Just read more. That's all you need to do. That's all you should focus on right now is physical activity, mental precision, and reading more, because you're not going to get anywhere by just listening to people talk on the internet. You know, there's a reason why I do the reading list, is because it's fundamental to understanding some concepts. GlockoonCon says, thanks for everything. Looking forward to the next stream. Could you publish a schedule somewhere? I don't have a schedule, really. This was impromptu. Like, we just started talking yesterday and we wanted to come on stream. And I had the time to do it tonight, which is the key thing. I don't normally have time for this all the time. So next week will be a couple more streams, probably Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or something like that. And I'll have to find a better time to start it, because the audience is split, 50-50 United States and Europe. So thanks for everyone for coming out. I appreciate Nordic Hero kind of girding his loins and coming on live. Yeah, it's good talking to you. All right, everyone. Take it easy. Thanks for watching.